بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Start reading from Fiqh al-Sunnah of Shaykh Sayyid Sabiq rahimahullah ta'ala in the first volume, page 331, speaking on al-i'tikaf. What is al-i'tikaf? He said rahimahullah, معناه الاعتكاف لزوم الشيء وحبس النفس عليه خيرا كان أم شرا. قال الله تعالى ما هذه التماثيل التي أنتم لها عاكفون أي مقيمون متعبدون لها. والمقصود به هنا لزوم المسجد والإقامة فيه بنية التقرب إلى الله عز وجل. First and foremost is the meaning of the word al-i'tikaf. What does the word al-i'tikaf mean literally and linguistically? We do this all of the time. Whatever we talk about, fasting, salah, this, that, we have to understand the actual word, what it means. And oftentimes, just understanding the basics of the language assists you with regards to the Sharia concept. The Sharia concept. So he says that i'tikaf luzum al-shay. To stick to something. To stick to something. To remain at a place or in a thing or in an act. To devote yourself to something and to remain stable and steady in one place. Don't move. Stay there. Khayran kana am sharran. Regardless of what it is, it could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. So a person who's addicted to alcohol, he makes i'tikaf in a bar. He's stuck there. He stays there. He devotes himself to that place of alcohol. That's his mu'takaf. He's making i'tikaf in a bar. Remember clear on this? And a person who is a Muslim who wishes to make i'tikaf in the masjid, or a student of knowledge who makes i'tikaf in a library, he's stuck there. Every time you see him, he's on the ladder, on the fifth shelf, reading something, pondering on something. That's what the word linguistically means. Nothing to do with the masjid, nothing to do with Ramadan, nothing to do with the last 10 nights. I'tikaf is to stay put. It means what? It's to stay put in a place. He mentions an ayah here is the discussion of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam and his people when he said to them, or he asked them, what are these tamathil, these idols and these figurines, these honorific images, antum laha akifun, that you're making i'tikaf with or to, that you're devoted to. Idol worshiper is devoted to his idol, devoted to Buddha. He's sitting there praying with the rosary beads, not moving. He's stuck in front of that idol or that image. Or Catholic. They're stuck in front of the idol of what is supposed to be Mary, the Virgin Mary. They're making i'tikaf in front of idols. He says, so this proves the linguistical meaning of it. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was saying to them, ay muqimuna muta'abiduna laha. Staying in front of them, worshiping them, devoting yourself to them. So therefore, that's what it linguistically means. As far as how we use it in the Islamic Sharia sense, then it is to stick to the masjid, to stay in the masjid, to stay put in the masjid with the intention of getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A very important restriction in the definition. Not just to stay in the masjid to socialize, or to be seen, or to be heard, but with the purpose of getting closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. Not going to the masjid to run away from this person or to get away from that person, but to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that helps us with regards to what we do when we make i'tikaf. What do we do when we don't make i'tikaf with regards to getting closer to Allah? We don't kill ourselves, we don't punish ourselves. So you can sleep when you make i'tikaf, you can eat, you can drink, obviously when it's time to eat, drink and sleep, etc. And do the other human things that you would normally do in a balanced ibadah. And a what? A balanced ibadah. You don't have to be reading Quran and praying all night, all day. Because it's for the purpose of getting closer to Allah, and we don't get close to Allah by punishing ourselves. We don't get closer to Allah by torturing ourselves and neglecting our basic human needs and necessities. Everybody clear on this or not? Let alone of keeping a consistent balance. Oftentimes when a person pushes and goes so hard, you find they fall off and they'll drop off. When someone is going so hard, and they lose moderation and balance. It looks good in the beginning, but a month, 2 months, a year later overseas studying, person quits. It's like a match. You light a match. You know the temperature of the match? The sulfur is very, very, very hot instantly. but very quickly the match goes out. So there always has to be a balance. And in that balance, there are times of spark. Like we mentioned, لِكُلِّ عَمْلٍ شِرَّةٍ وَلِكُلِّ شِرَّةٍ فَتْرَةٍ. We explained that hadith in detail. Is that there's slow jump. Slow jump. You keep a balance, then you have spark. You have a spark. Everybody understand this? But if you try to keep one pace like that throughout the whole entire thing, you're bound to quit. You're bound to what? You're bound to quit. Everybody understand this? The fastest land animal is the cheetah. But the cheetah cannot outrun the gazelle in a long distance race. It will lose its breath. And if it's fortunate enough to catch its game and its prey, then they say it has to wait 30 minutes to an hour just to catch its breath, the cheetah. And while it's huffing and puffing, there are other animals, whether they're hyenas or vultures or other big cats, that try to steal its prey from it. And we all know that the cheetah is a relatively scrawny cat. It isn't muscular. It isn't muscle bound. It isn't a strong cat. So a bigger cat comes, it can just what? Push it out the way and take the food that it worked so hard for. Because it's so fast and so rapid, it's not meant to make a long sprint. It creeps, ambushes, and then when the time is right, with a short period of distance, the animal has no chance of outstripping the cheetah. But in a long run, it can't go that fast. It loses breath. Everybody understand the parable that we're trying to get to? We have the tortoise and the hare. This is important. Wisdom in life. And especially when it comes to ilm and when it comes to ibadah. Going so fast all of the time, eventually you'll run out of steam. And in most cases, when you run out of steam, you quit. So the brother was saying, ilm, ibadah. Then come back next year. He doesn't pray. He shaved his beard. He has a tattoo. He has a girlfriend. He's drinking. He's smoking, so on and so forth. Say, what happened? Oh, well, I'm going through something. Make dua for me. How many brothers have we seen like this? How many faces as we speak are not around? Here in this masjid. Sheikh, since last summer. Quite a few. So there's always balance and moderation. And it doesn't mean that you don't strive and you don't go hard in the proper time. So that's what's meant here by i'tikaf, is to get closer to Allah and not to punish yourself. So you have to keep a moderate balance. He then says, مشروعيته وقد أجمع العلماء على أنه مشروع فقد كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يعتكف في كل رمضان 10 أيام فلما كان العام الذي قبض فيه اعتكف 20 يوما رواه البخاري وابو داود وابن ماجه وقد اعتكف أصحابه وأزواجه معه وبعده وهو وإن كان قربة إلا أنه لم يرد في فضله حديث صحيح. قال أبو داود قلت لأحمد رحمه الله تعرف في فضل الاعتكاف شيئا؟ قال لا إلا شيئا ضعيفا. As far as the ruling on making i'tikaf, and is it from the deen, it is a good thing to do, a mandatory thing to do, etc. He says that the scholars of Islam, they agree unanimously, consensus, all madhabs, is that i'tikaf is a good thing to do. There's no difference of opinion with regards to it being from the deen. It's legitimate. It's legitimate. He mentions, so that's the first proof that he mentions, which is the strongest dalil. We study usul al-fiqh, the strongest evidence is ijma'. Ijma' is a stronger proof than the actual hadith. It's a stronger proof than a verse in the Quran. And that's because a Quranic verse could be abrogated. Very good answer. Or it could be interpreted in a different way or understood in a different way. Hadith could be authentic, could be weak. Hadith could have a meaning somewhat, but ijma' is what? Leaves no discrepancies, consensus. All of the people of knowledge held this view. It leaves no what? No room for any type of argument. Everybody understand this? Ijma' is the strongest proof. Everybody clear on this? It's the what? It's the strongest evidence. It's not the first evidence, but it's the what? The strongest. I may quote a hadith to you, may say, I disagree in the understanding of the hadith. You don't understand it properly. Or I think that the hadith is weak. Even though Sheikh Fulan said it's sahih, I've researched it and I don't consider it to be sahih. But if there's ijma' that is established, then it's the strongest dalil. So that's why he mentions it first. Then he says, the Prophet ﷺ, he used to make i'tikaf in Ramadan, 10 days. But the year in which he passed away, ﷺ, he made i'tikaf for 20 days. 20 days, and not just 10. And this hadith can be found in Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari, Sunan of Imam Abu Dawud, and the Sunan of Ibn Majah. Listen carefully to point 3, Talib. He says, And the Prophet ﷺ's companions made i'tikaf with him and his wives as well. And they also did afterwards. He's mentioning this to show you that i'tikaf was not specific to him. It wasn't special to the Prophet. His companions did it, and his what? His wives did it, which also proves that women can make i'tikaf. Women are allowed to make i'tikaf. Last but not least, they did it after he died to show that it wasn't specific to his time, abrogated. Only make i'tikaf in the time of the Prophet. And his no. I'tikaf, they understood it to be practiced what? Afterwards. And there are certain rulings that were specific to the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Certain things that were only done in the time of the Prophet and with the Prophet. And they weren't to be done what? Afterwards, such as his wives making hajj. They weren't to make hajj after him, ﷺ. They weren't to remarry after him. And there are other rulings as well. There are other what? Other rulings that are only specific to the time of the Prophet ﷺ. The next point he says, even though this is an act of ibadah that we do to get closer to Allah, he says there is no authentic hadith that supports i'tikaf. There is no authentic hadith that supports it. I.e., the rulings of i'tikaf with regards to its virtue, not its rulings, but its virtue, are taken from what? Other sources. The rulings of i'tikaf, there are authentic hadiths to prove what you can and cannot do. The ayat. وَلَا تُبَاشِرُهُنَّ وَأَنْتُمْ عَاكِفُونَ فِي الْمَسَاجِدِ. Allah says, don't go near your wives while you're making i'tikaf. It's a ruling, but he's talking about the virtue of it. He says there's no authentic hadith to support this. Imam Abu Dawud, rahimahullah, one day he asked his teacher, Imam Ahmed, he says, do you know of an authentic hadith concerning the virtue of i'tikaf? Imam Ahmed said, no. He says, except for narrations which are weak. Point number 3, أقسامه الاعتكاف ينقسم إلى مسنون وإلى واجب فالمسنون ما تطوع به المسلم تقربا إلى الله وطلبا لثوابه واقتداء بالرسول صلوات الله وسلامه عليه ويتأكد ذلك في العشر الأواخر من رمضان لما تقدم والاعتكاف والواجب ما أوجبه المرء على نفسه إما بالنذر المطلق مثل أن يقول لله علي أن أعتكف كذا أو بالنذر المعلق كقوله إن شفى الله مريضي لأعتكفن كذا. وفي صحيح البخاري أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من نذر أن يطيع الله فليطيع. وفيه أن عمر رضي الله عنه قال يا رسول الله إني نذرت أن أعتكف ليلة في المسجد الحرام فقال أوفي بنذرك. What are the types of i'tikaf? The types of i'tikaf. He says i'tikaf is divided or broken down into two types, two categories. He says the first type is that which is recommended. You don't have to do it. It's a good thing to do. And the second type of i'tikaf is that which is mandatory and you have to do it. It's not an option. I'tikaf is either going to be recommended or it's either going to be fard. Either recommended, it's a virtue. If you want to do it, do it. If you don't want to, don't have to do it. I have to balance and prioritize. Go to work, pay the bills, feed my family, allow my wife and children to make i'tikaf, my son to study the Quran, or I choose to make i'tikaf, but it isn't obligatory. It's not what? It's not obligatory. Why weren't you in the masjid? Why don't you make i'tikaf? You can't what? You can't say that because it's not wajib. Anyone who doesn't make i'tikaf is considered a fasiq. He's a sinner. His word is no good. You can't what? Because it's not fard. And there's another type of i'tikaf which is fard, in which all of the rulings of something being fard now apply. Everybody understand this? When something is wajib in the deen and a person doesn't perform it, then there's a list of that apply. And when something isn't fard in the deen, there are a list of rulings that apply or don't apply as well. Everybody understand this? Those who don't make salah, that's wajib. If they don't make prayer, then there's now a list of what? That apply. Is he a kafir? Can he get married? Can you eat from his slaughtered animals? Etc. Well, anything from the deen. So he says there's mandatory i'tikaf, and then there's recommended i'tikaf. As far as the recommended i'tikaf, then that's the i'tikaf that the Muslim chooses to do. He chooses to do it. And he seeks closeness to Allah. He asks Allah's reward, and he's imitating the Prophet ﷺ. He says, and it is even more recommended, not mandatory or the only time to make i'tikaf. But he says, yata'akkad. It is more recommended during the last 10. During the last 10 and not the first 1. No. Not only the last 10. Not only the last 10. Something is higher recommended doesn't mean it's the only time you can do it. Because of the hadith that we previously mentioned. That the Prophet ﷺ, the year in which he passed, he made i'tikaf for what? 20 days and not 10. He says, so that's the recommended type of i'tikaf. As far as the i'tikaf which is mandatory, then it is the i'tikaf that is done by means of an act of worship which is called an-nadhr. An-nadhr. And an-nadhr is basically an oath that you make. A promise that you make to Allah. A promise that you make to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And obviously we know, or we should know as Muslims, is that there are two types of promises that you make to Allah. Two types of nadhrs. The first is called a nadhrul mutlaq, in which you promise to do an act of worship for Allah without anything in return. You say to yourself, I will make hajj for the sake of Allah. I made hajj already. I did it 2-3 times. I'm going to make hajj for Allah's sake. You put something on yourself. I will slaughter this goat for Allah's sake, without nothing that you ask Allah in return. And it's called a nadhrul mutlaq. And this is the good type of nadhr. And this is the nadhr which is, with the ulama, it says the khair, the good type, the positive nadhr. And the second one is that which is called a nadhrul mu'allaq, in which you ask Allah for something in return. By saying, if Allah cures my sick grandmother, I will make hajj for his sake. If Allah allows me to pass this exam, I will sacrifice a camel. If Allah allows me to get married this year, I will give $1,000 in sadaqah. Are you clear on this? This is called a nadhrul mu'allaq. Is when a person asks Allah for something in return. And it's the type of nadhr which is generally looked down upon. It's permissible, but it's generally what? Looked down upon. Whether it's the first type or the second type, the moment that you make this oath with Allah, i'tikaf now becomes what? Wajib. So a person says, I will promise to Allah that I will make i'tikaf. Or one says, if Allah cures my sick husband, a woman says, I will make what? I'tikaf for 5 nights. Those 5 nights are now what? Fard. She has to go. She must go to the masjid and make what? I'tikaf. It's no longer an option. But the brother who just comes to the masjid and says, I want to make i'tikaf, it's a what? It's an option. Everybody understand this? We got this or not? Everybody got this? So there's mandatory i'tikaf and then there's what? Recommended i'tikaf. Tayyib. Another proof here, he says here, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, whoever makes a vow to obey Allah, then he should obey Allah. Also, Umar radiallahu anhu, he told the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, that one day I made a promise to Allah to make i'tikaf in al-Masjid al-Haram. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, Awfi bi nadrik. He said, fulfill your vow. Fulfill your vow. Meaning, go and stay in the masjid for one night. Point number 4, he says, زمانه الاعتكاف الواجب يؤدى حسب ما نذره وسماه الناذر فالنذر الاعتكاف يوما أو أكثر وجب الوفاء بما نذره والاعتكاف المستحب ليس له وقت محدد فيتحقق بالمكث في المسجد مع نية الاعتكاف طال الوقت أم قصر ويثاب ما بقى في المسجد أو ما بقي في المسجد. He says here the time of i'tikaf, how much time is to be spent when making i'tikaf. He says the first type of i'tikaf, the mandatory type of i'tikaf, is based off of what you say to Allah. I promise to stay for a day. Then you have to stay for a day. I promise to stay for 10 days. Then you have to stay for 10 days. He says as far as the recommended type of i'tikaf, then that is no restriction on it. You can stay in the masjid for as long as you want. He says, طال الوقت أم قصره. A long period of time or a short period of time. So you can make i'tikaf for an hour, for 3 hours, for 5 hours, for 2 days. Say, I don't want to stay all 10 nights, or I can't stay all 10 nights. Depending on what you wish to do. As long as it's what? Recommended. Not the mandatory type of an i'tikaf. And he shall receive the reward as long as he remains in the masjid. فَإِذَا خَرَجَ مِنْهُ ثُمَّ عَادَ إِلَيْهِ جَدَّدَ النِّيَّةَ أَنْ قَصَدَ الْإِعْتِكَافِ. So if a person leaves the masjid, then he wants to come back to the masjid, he jaddad al-niyyah, he refreshes his intention. If that was his intention to make i'tikaf in the first place. فَأَنْ يَعْلَى بْنُ أُمَيَّةَ قَالَ إِنِّي لَأَمْكُثُ فِي الْمَسْجِدِ سَاعَةً مَا أَمْكُثُ إِلَّا الْإِعْتِكَافِ أو إِلَّا لِأَعْتَكِفَ وقال عطاء هو اعتكاف ما مكث فيه وَإِنْ جَلَسَ فِي الْمَسْجِدِ احْتِسَابَ الْخَيْرِ فهو معتكف وَلَا فَلَا. He says that Ya'la ibn Umayyah, he said, he's quoting the Sahaba and the Tabi'een, the Salaf right now. He says, and indeed, I sit in the masjid for 1 hour and I only stay there with the intention of i'tikaf. I go to the masjid sa'atan, a piece of time. Whether it's the exact 60 minutes that we have today or a little more, a little less back in the day. He says, and that's the only intention that I have. Ata said, a person making i'tikaf as long as he has the intention to make i'tikaf. No matter how long or short he sits in the masjid. No matter how long or no matter how short he sits in the masjid. As long as he intends good, he's making i'tikaf. And if he doesn't intend it, then he isn't making i'tikaf no matter how long he. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. The hadith. These are only based off of intentions. Moving forward, he says, وَلِلْمُعْتَكِفِ أَنْ يَقْطَعَ اعْتِكَافَهُ الْمُسْتَحَبَّ مَتَى شَاءَ قَبْلَ قَضَاءِ الْمُدَّةِ الَّتِي نَوَاهَا. He says, as far as the recommended i'tikaf, then you're allowed to break it whenever you want to, even though it's less than your intended amount of time. You made the intention of staying for 10 nights. After the 7th night, you say, I want to go home, or I'm tired, or I have an emergency, or I want to do something else. Then it's permissible to do what? To stop it. Even though your original intention was 10 nights, or your original intention was 24 hours, but you only stayed for 23. Everybody clear on this? Whenever you wish to do. That isn't pertaining to the mandatory i'tikaf. That's only pertaining to the what? The recommended type of i'tikaf. فعن عائشة أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كان إذا أراد أن يعتكف صلى الفجر ثم دخل معتكفه وأنه أراد مرة أن يعتكف في العشر الأواخر من رمضان فأمر ببنائه فضرب. قالت عائشة فلما رأيت ذلك أمرت ببنائه فضرب وأمر غيري من أزواج النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ببنائه فضرب. فلما صلى الفجر نظر إلى الأبنية فقال ما هذه البر تردنا؟ قالت فأمر ببنائه فقوض وأمر أزواجه بأبنية فقوضت ثم أخر الاعتكاف إلى العشر الأول يعني من شوال. فأمر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم نساءه بتقويض أبنيتهن وترك الاعتكاف بعد نيته منهن دليل على قطعه بعد الشروع فيه. وفي الحديث أن للرجل أن يمنع زوجته من الاعتكاف بغير إذنه وإليه ذهب عامة العلماء واختلفوا فيما لو أذن لها هل له منعها بعد ذلك فإن الشافعي وأحمد وداود له منعها وإخراجها من اعتكاف التطوع. He mentions the proof for this, and that's the hadith of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. Aisha narrates that كان إذا أراد, that whenever he wanted to make i'tikaf, he would make fajr, and then he would go into the section in which he wanted to make i'tikaf. One time he had the intention of making i'tikaf in the last 10 nights. So he ordered for a tent to be placed, for a tent to be made in the masjid for him. So that was done. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala, she said, فَلَمَّا رَأَيْتُ ذَلِكَ أَمَرْتُ. So when I saw the Prophet put up a tent, I put up a tent as well. And there were other wives of the Prophet who did the same as well. They wanted to put up another tent, another tent, another tent, another tent, another tent. The author, he then says, quoting the hadith, so therefore the Messenger of Allah, he offered Salat al-Fajr, and he saw the abundance of tents. He says, Al-birra turidna. He says, you wanna do something good? You have a good intention in doing this? قالت فأمر ببنائه فقوضه. So then he told them to take them down, to take his tent down. And the wives of the Prophet, they did the same thing as well. And then he delayed his i'tikaf to the first 10 days of Shawwal. He didn't perform i'tikaf that year in Ramadan. Instead, he did it during the first 10 days of what? Of Shawwal. And then the Messenger of Allah, he told them to do the same as well, to take down their tents. He says, so this hadith, it shows, as we previously already mentioned, he told them to they took down the tents. He says, this hadith, it shows, is that the Prophet he stopped his i'tikaf after he already made the intention and started. And that is permissible. That's the highlighting point, is that it's permissible. Tayyib, he says another fa'idah from this hadith, and it's the last thing that we'll take today, is that it's permissible for a man to prevent his wife from making i'tikaf unless she gives permission, unless he gives her permission. If she doesn't give permission to make i'tikaf, he can say, come home. No, I'm in the masjid, you can't kick me out the masjid. The masjid is for the handmaidens of Allah. He says this hadith proves that he what? He can do that if she did it without his permission. Tayyib. As far as, he says, and that's the view of most of the ulama. As far as if he did allow her to go to the masjid, can he stop her now? She says, Zoj or honey or whatever she calls her husband, can I go to the masjid for i'tikaf? He says, sure. So she goes for 3 nights. And then all of a sudden, he what? He misses his wife. He says, come back home. She says, no, you gave me permission to make all 10 nights. Can he stop her or not? I reckon on this or not. The first one was pertaining to her making i'tikaf without permission. That's done. We're finished. Now we're talking about he gave her permission. Can he stop her after she started it or not? He says that Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah and Imam Ahmad and Imam Dawood al-Zahiri rahimahumullah ta'ala, they say that he has the permission to do that, to take her from her place of i'tikaf, even though he previously gave her permission. Obviously, it's not the details of this issue. That's a side fa'idah. That's a side fa'idah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.